YouTube, what's going on? Welcome to the Off the Schneid 2020 NFL Preview Series, where I'll be going over all 32 NFL teams, breaking down their rosters, their schedule, giving you a record prediction, as well as helping out with some betting tips. If this is your first time at the channel, do me a massive favor, hit that like and subscribe button, turn on notifications, and check the description for links to social media for Off the Schneid. Follow us on there as well. I want to give a massive shout out to OurLads Scouting Services and OurLads.com for helping me to make these videos. I'm on their website almost daily, and if you're a serious football fan, guys, you need to have this website bookmarked, favorited, whatever it is. Helps me at draft time, fantasy football purposes, when creating bet slips, as well as DFS lineups. It's your one-stop shop for NFL scouting services. There's a link in the description for OurLads.com as well as the social media. Do me a favor again, hit that like and subscribe button. But enough of that. Let's get to your favorite NFL football preview. All right, we're taking a look at the Detroit Lions. We'll start at quarterback. As always, we got Matthew Stafford, who had a pretty bad injury last year, pretty bad back injury, but he was well on his way to being a potential MVP candidate. He was basically 2,500 yards exactly, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. My only concern there is the team was only 3-4-1 at the time. They tied Arizona Cardinals. Yes, it was in Arizona, but rookie quarterback, new system, everything like that. That's the type of game you got to win. So the record wasn't, if they were sitting there at like 6-4 or something like that, or 4-4, 5-3, something like that, then I would like their chances a lot more this year. He should be healthy as far as I'm concerned. As far as I hear, he should be fully healthy. Second year in Darrell Bevell's offense. But the pressure's on. It hasn't been any secret that the pressure's on in Detroit and Matt Patricia to get some wins and to be a winning team and a potential playoff team this year. It's been no secret. They do have the firepower, but we'll get into that. Chase Daniel as a backup, I think, is a great move. I think that's a good pickup. Makes a lot of sense. They definitely upgrade as far as their backup quarterback situation in Detroit, in my opinion. And they still have David Blau there as well, who will probably move to the practice squad. Second round running back draft pick Deandre Swift, I think, is a great pick. And I think he will be the starter there before season's end. It might take a week or two, especially with what's going on in the world. It's going to be tough for him to just walk in and steal that job from Kerryon Johnson right away. But I think it's only a matter of time, in my opinion. I do really like Bo Scarborough being there. He's a great goal line back, huge guy. He had a pretty decent year for them last year. He had 377 yards, 1 touchdown. I would have liked a few more touchdowns given his size, but only 6 games played, and he just kind of walked in off the street and had to pick up the offense and pick up the reads and everything like that. And he did an okay job, in my opinion. So I think he's a good complimentary back. He's a good goal line back and a good guy to have on your roster. Move to tight end. I like TJ Hawkinson. I do a fair bit. My only problem is tight ends don't seem to flourish in Detroit. I guess it's different offenses and everything with JBC before, but we'll see. And I did like his rookie year, but if you take out week 1, he was pretty mediocre. He did get injured and missed a couple games. So I definitely see him taking a step forward as long as his health is all the way there. There are still some question marks, I believe. Jesse James is fine, but you don't really want to rely on Jesse James, if I'm being honest. But I do like the Hunter Bryant addition as well. He's I think he'll move quite a bit up this depth chart and potentially he'll definitely play some downs for this team, in my opinion. Offensive line, they lost some pieces. They lost Ricky Wagner, who went to his hometown team with the Green Bay Packers, divisional rival as well. And then Graham Glasgow, who went to Denver. Those are some big losses, but they did bring in Vaitai, drafted Jonah Jackson, drafted Logan Stenberg. Tyrell Crosby I like, takes another step forward most likely. Frank Ragnow I really like. So I would say, and Taylor Decker I think is a very good left tackle. I would say they're almost even. I would call it a bit of a wash in my opinion, on the offensive line. They were definitely in the bottom half of the league in sacks allowed, and then touchdowns passing, and total touchdowns as well. So they definitely had an okay. They were okay. As long as they're just as good as last year, then it's okay. And I think that they will be about a wash with last year's offensive line. So move over to wide receiver. Kenny Golladay, in my opinion, top 10 wide receiver in the league. I really, really like Kenny Golladay. If you look at his numbers, what he did, 1,190 yards, 11 touchdowns, even with Marvin Jones too, 779 with missing 3 games and 9 touchdowns. Considering, Matt Stafford missed half those games, those are pretty good numbers, and that's a lot to like. And Danny Amendola was pretty good as well, considering he's kind of your third wide receiver, your slot receiver, 678 yards and 1 touchdown. It'd be nice to have a couple more touchdowns, but if you're out of your slot receiver, you're really just looking for a chain mover and some yards. So that's good for Danny Amendola. Quintez Cephas, they drafted. I do like him. Out of Wisconsin, I believe, which is one of the more run-heavy offenses in college football. But he's got good measurables and everything like that, so I think he could be complimentary. And then, if needed, which I don't particularly see, he'll have to play a major role, but I think he could be okay. Victor Bolden, they brought in Geronimo Allison, Travis Fulgham, who was, I think, like a 4th-round pick a couple years ago. So I think they're fine offensively. As long as that offensive line is just as good as it was last year, then I think they're just fine offensively. And as well, obviously, if Matt Stafford stays healthy, that's a big if as well. But Chase Daniel, I think, would be a capable backup if need be. I think it's an improvement over last year if he ends up playing games. So move over to the defensive side of the ball. They were second worst in the league at getting after the quarterback and allowed 33 touchdowns passing. So those are scary numbers for me. You obviously you can't get after the quarterback and you can't stop the pass. So those kind of work hand in hand a lot of times. If your pass rushers aren't getting the quarterback, your corners are gonna fail. If your corners aren't giving your pass rush enough time, then they work hand in hand. In my opinion, that's how it works. A good defensive line can make up for a poor secondary. A very good secondary can make up for a poor defensive line. But they were bad on both accounts last year. They lost Darius Slay, obviously, in a trade, which I believe it was a trade, which for some reason him and Matt Patricia just didn't get along. I don't know what it is. It happens. It's just a thing that happens in sports and in football. Different personalities, they just don't get along. It's not the end of the world, but clearly he just wasn't happy, and they moved on from him. And then Rashawn Melvin leaves, but in my opinion, Rashawn Melvin is probably part of the problem. So they went out and picked up Darryl Roberts from the Jets, which is he's a solid kind of depth guy, complimentary guy. And then Desmond Trufant from the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people are talking about how much of how much he's falling off and everything like that. He still had 4 interceptions in 9 games, Desmond Trufant. And he can still get the job done. Savvy vet. I think that's a good pickup for them. And then obviously, 3rd overall, they go out and get Jeff Okudah, which is a great pick, a fantastic pick. And I think he walks in and is at the very least what Darius Slay was for this team last year. Obviously, that might have been an unmotivated, unhappy Darius Slay, but at the very least, you're not getting a drop-off, I don't think, with Jeff Okudah. They drafted Romeo Okwara's little brother, Julian, in the 3rd round as well, which should help. They have to get after the quarterback more than they did last year. They absolutely have to. But I think that they did what they could. I think they did what they could to help that. They picked up Nick Williams, which I think is a very, very good pickup. They have him listed as number 3 right now. He will be the starter over John Atkins, almost 100%. Danny Shelton can clog up the middle. He's not getting after the quarterback, but he makes up for the other guys rushing the quarterback type of thing. And then Trey Flowers, former Patriot, I really like as a pass rusher. Julian and Romeo Okwara. They even have Deshaun Hand, I like. Austin Bryant. So I think they should be able to get after the quarterback a little better than they did last year. And then the back end, I think, is probably improved as well. So overall, I think the defense has improved. They add Jamie Collins, Deron Harmon. So I definitely, and Justin Coleman is a very good corner as well, very good nickel corner, and a bit of a ball hawk. I think he had 4 total turnovers, 3 forced fumbles, 1 interception last year. Jamal Agnew's still there. Amani O, Oruware, probably butchered that. They signed Tony McRae from my Bengals as well. So they added some depth, they added some pieces. I think this team is definitely improved from last year, but I mean, of course it would be. They're third worst team in the league last year. So they got a lot of pieces. I'm just not quite sure if they're there yet on the defensive side of the ball. I think, like I said, I think it is improved, but I don't think that they're quite there. Offensively, I think they're okay. Unless... Here's the thing, like Matt Stafford has kind of made a name for himself in that 2011 season when he had 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns. He hasn't really gotten super close to those numbers since then. And now after this major back injury, there's just question marks. I do really like this team. I do. I think that they could push for the playoffs. But we'll get into the record prediction in a second here. They just have to get better in a bunch of areas, and I'm not sure if they're going to get to that point that they need to be at, especially like run game, pass rushing, turnovers, that sort of thing, run defense, that sort of a stuff. So let's get into the record prediction, but there's kind of your roster breakdown for the 2020 Detroit Lions. So the Lions play the NFC South and AFC South, which is relatively difficult. But they do play, especially the NFC South, they do play the tougher teams, the Bucks and the Saints at home. You can see my low, high, my there. I really struggled with this whole division, but this team especially, I think that it's possible they win this division. It's possible they make the playoffs. Do I think they quite get there? I think they come up just a bit short. They take a step forward. But they're in I don't know. They're in a weird position. I'm not sure if Matt Patricia will be back next year. If one of these records come true, if he's 8-8, 9-7 type of thing, I'm not sure if Matt Patricia's back. And then there's more flux to the team, right? So it's not getting any easier being a Lions fan, in my opinion, this year, unless they do surprise a bunch of people and they go to the playoffs, they win the division, that sort of thing. But I just see them being a middle of the pack team, kind of everywhere and contending. They have all the pieces to be able to contend with all of these teams, but even more so than say the Bears, I think that they come up even more short than the Bears would, if I'm being honest. So let's take a look at their record, or at their schedule here. Chicago week 1 at home. I think that they should definitely get that win as long as Stafford's healthy and everything like that. They should be able to beat the Bears at home. On the road against Green Bay, I think that the Packers likely take that win. At Arizona, a much improved team. I think that they have a hard time with that, to be honest. And then at home against the Saints. So I think it's very possible that the Lions start 1-3, which would not be a very good start, right? Obviously. But it does kind of get easier a little later in the season, obviously after their bye. If they do start 1-3, I think that's a good spot to have their bye so early, so they can kind of catch their breath, go on the road against Jacksonville and probably get that win. Then on the road against Atlanta, I think that that's a similar team, but I think Atlanta would be able to get that win there at home. At home against the Colts, again, a very similar team, very tough opponent. At home, you got to kind of win that game at home if you want to be a playoff team. We'll see what happens there. At Minnesota, I think that they should be able to get that win. Hopefully, I think the Vikings take a step back and end up at the bottom of this division. I do, and I know I'm going to take a lot of heat from Vikings fans on that. But I think the Vikings are a team that you're going to have to beat if you want to be a playoff team. They just have a lot of holes and a lot of rookies that are playing prominent roles on their team, which is a little bit scary. At home against the Washington Redskins, that's, again, a game that you absolutely have to win. The Redskins are going to have a very good defense, in my opinion. So this offensive line is going to have to hold up in that sort of a game, or else Matt Stafford's going to spend a lot of time on his back. At the Panthers are a team you're going to have to beat as well, whether it's at home or on the road. At home against the Texans, a game that they can absolutely win. So, like I said, they got to kind of stay above water in the early part of their schedule. Stay above water, and then you might have a better shot at 9-7 or 10-6 or something like that. The division, the playoffs, that kind of a thing. They have to win some games that they should at home, like the Colts, the Jags, the Bears at home, the Redskins, the Panthers, the Texans. These games they kind of have to win the majority of those games if they want to be a playoff team. That's just my opinion on it. And then at the Bears in December, that's a tough game. I expect the Bears to get that win. At home against Green Bay, that's going to be another tough game, but you kind of have to split with your division rivals in this division. It's fairly easy to say that all these teams split home and away in this division, in the NFC North. It's fairly easy to say that. But I almost think it's the minimum. That is the minimum that you have to do. You have to win your home and homes against your division rivals. At Tennessee, I think that's a very tough game. I do think Tennessee takes a step back, so that's a winnable game, but it is on the road. At home against the Bucs, tough game. Tom Brady, that's probably a game that they're going to want to win. It's going to be a positional type of a game for the Bucs, I think. But a winnable game at home. We'll see. And then they finish the season at home against Minnesota, and I definitely think they get that win at home, as long as, everything's going their way and they are kind of contending for a playoff position like the record suggests. If they're 9-7, they're going to be right in there for that 6th or 7th wild card spot. So I don't think Lions fans can get very upset with me here. I think I might be going higher than a lot of people are thinking that they're going to be looking at record-wise. I might be on the higher side, to be honest with you. But I just think the parity in this division kind of calls for that. So we'll see. But yeah, there you go. Let me know what you think in your comments for the Detroit Lions. There's your record prediction and roster breakdown for 2020 Detroit Lions.